Welcome to COUNTERSPIN, your weekly look behind the headlines of the mainstream news. I'm Janine Jackson. We think of whistleblowers as standing alone, as at first they do. But a person who wants to bring to light critical information that a powerful institution once kept hidden, so much so that exposing it puts the person in danger, relies on others outside the institution, taking that information and using it. Whistleblowers benefit, too, from a journalistic culture that welcomes the exposure of policies or practices that the public ought to know about, and a broader culture that also values openness and transparency. The persecution of whistleblowers in the era of the unending and ill-defined war on terror and elite journalists' less than rallying response show a need for a revived focus on these core principles. And that's part of what the Stand Up for Truth tour is about. Here to tell us about it is one of the participants, attorney and former FBI special agent and division counsel Coleen Rowley, likely known to listeners for speaking out about mishandled intelligence and lack of interagency cooperation in advance of the September 11th, 2001 attacks. She joins us now by phone. Welcome to COUNTERSPIN, Coleen Rowley.
Thanks for having me.
What is the Stand Up for Truth tour about? What are the driving ideas behind it?
Well, I think you actually phrased it pretty well. If you look back at all democracy creation in all countries and throughout the ages, and especially including our founding fathers, they knew that transparency of government, and it's not just government, by the way, it's any large organization. If you have organizations and groups operating in secret, ultimately they will become corrupted. Lord Acton, the famous Lord Acton who said power corrupts, he also said everything secret degenerates, even the administration of justice. No matter what system you set up, if you do not include transparency and mechanisms such as freedom of press and freedom of speech, ultimately your system is going to fail. That's what we're trying to get back at here. People have seemingly forgotten that these values of openness and transparency at the highest levels are the most important because they make decisions that affect us all. And certainly the voters need this kind of information to even make intelligent voting decisions. You know, things at the bottom, privacy, for instance, at the bottom, which now doesn't really exist, we have it just the opposite. We have no privacy at the lowest levels, and we have complete secrecy at the highest levels. And this has to be changed, and we have to make people understand why that has to change. I think the wars have allowed this fear-mongering to make people believe that they're going to give up security or give up their safety if government's secrets, even outright illegal acts, are known to the wider public.
Well, and I would note the Stand Up for Truth tour involved some events, including in Europe, also some webinars, and folks can look at standupfortruth.org to find out all the pieces that comprise that. You're talking about the way the issue is framed as kind of privacy versus security. I think sometimes the media can make it seem as though the debate is between people who think the United States, if we're talking about government, who think the United States is good and should be trusted, and those who think it's bad and can't be trusted, you know, as though it's cynical to think that governments require this kind of scrutiny. I wonder, how would you like to see the public conversation change around these issues of trust in government as being, or it could be corporations, trust in institutions, as opposed to transparency?
Well, and I would not frame it at all as security versus privacy. I would actually frame it as security versus democracy. And ultimately, our safety does depend upon the governance structure that we live by. But we also need that transparency to actually make ourselves safer. So it's actually a win-win. If we can make people understand that they are actually helping their security, that they are actually promoting and improving. And in my example exactly is a perfect example. If people had shared information, if the government had been looser, even in sharing information internally and also with the public, and that isn't my opinion, that's the 9/11 Commission's opinion. So that is actually what caused the 9/11 or enabled the 9/11 attacks to occur, was secrecy. So if you understand that we are making ourselves safer, it's a win-win. As part of trust, that's really irrelevant. There are all kinds of individuals in government. From time to time, outright criminals in government, especially in corporations and any place else. There is a wide degree variation of people. It has nothing to do with trusting individuals. It has everything to do with the system. I think Europe might appreciate this a little better, not only due to their history during World War II and then, of course, in East Germany, for instance, with the Stasi. I think they also have the distance from the U.S. that they can see this a little clearer than people living here who are subject, unfortunately, to kind of a nonstop, whatever you want to call it, meme or memo that, trust us. If you don't trust us, you're going to die, especially right now with the Patriot Act, or at least the one provision of the Patriot Act coming to an end. You are hearing this real fear-mongering threat that if you do not reenact the Patriot Act, we can't even debate it, if you do not reenact this provision, you will be risking your life. That's being said right now by the White House officials.
A whistleblower has to know that someone has their back, and I guess I wish that journalists would send the message more loudly and clearly that if someone has something that people deserve to know, but that a corporation or the government wants hidden, not just that the individual journalist will protect them as a source, but that journalism itself won't, for example, go straight to the question of whether they should be in prison, as compared to the importance of the information that they've revealed. We've talked about how government has been particularly hostile to whistleblowers. I wonder what you think about the media climate. Is it particularly whistleblower friendly?
I was on the cover of Time magazine along with the Enron and WorldCom whistleblower back in December of 2002. So there was this moment. It's been 13 years. 13 years ago, I think that I would have answered this question very differently. I think the media appreciated that they needed people like Sharon Watkins and Cynthia Cooper and myself to tell the truth, or in fact the public was risking losing their life savings and risking even terrorist attack. I think there was a moment when that was the case. I think over the last 13 years, I think that really has gone the other direction. Even the rule of law has, by the way, gone in the other direction as well. There are many famous quotes about how the situation of war diminishes freedom of speech. And even, people don't know this, but even 2 or 3 weeks after 9/11, one of those secret Office of Legal Counsel memos that came out 3 weeks after 9/11 said that we are going to have to really curtail freedom of speech given that we have to start wars. Right. That's actually in one of those memos. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And it actually has happened, and I think now with the media is not very good. At least media organizations should take this on to protect sources because it's really their profession that's on the line. I mean, anybody can be a spokesperson for the government and put out their press releases. And, we've seen the old communist era where that was the case with journalism, and everybody knew it wasn't true because it was just coming straight out of government sources. Is that what our media wants, or do they want to get back to the real professional investigative journalism? There are some reporters and journalists that, of course, are better on this, but then a lot of them go along with the situation right now, and they really should be, at least as an entity, working harder to protect sources in all different ways.
We've been speaking with Coleen Rowley. As I said, you can find out more about the Stand Up for Truth tour at standupfortruth.org. Thank you so much, Coleen Rowley, for joining us today on Counterspin.
Yes, thank you too.